Oh, yeah. Oh, I don't know. I don't know nothing about you. I don't really know anything. Yeah, we'll see you. Is that? Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. I need it louder. Hi, good evening. Good evening, everybody. Good Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. All right, I used to be a teacher. I'm gonna have to do the clap thing. You can hear me clap once. All right. Good evening, everyone. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I want to go ahead and invite Willie and David to join us on stage, and we are just about ready to get started. Everything good on the tech side with staff? Oh, I don't think I need to be that loud anymore.
Take whatever chair you would like, Willie. There you go.
All right. Jamie, can we turn me down just a little bit? Thank you. I don't think anyone wants to hear me that loud. All right. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It is really heartwarming to see our community turn out in support of our wharf and our businesses and our community, and this is really what it's all about. My name is Kristen Brown. I'm the mayor here in the city of Capitola. I'm just going to take a quick moment to introduce you to our staff and let you know how tonight's meeting is going to run. Keep in mind, we've got a short time tonight, so we're on a bit of an abbreviated timeline, but this is just the beginning of these conversations. It's not the end, so we're just getting started tonight. So, all right. So as I said, my name is Kristen Brown. I'm the mayor. I'm joined here with our staff. We have Eric Martin, who's our building official. Next to him, we have Jessica Kahn, our public works director and city engineer. We have, where'd Katie go? We have Katie Herlihy somewhere, and she's our community development director. Jamie Goldstein is our city manager. And then some faces that you might recognize already. We have Willie Case from the Wharf House Restaurant. And David Morris from Capitola Boat and Bait. So how tonight's meeting is going to run, we're going to hand it over to staff real quick. They're going to give some updates, give you a preview about how we got where we are. After that, we're going to give a couple minutes for Willie and David each to talk about their experiences, what they're going through right now. And then we're going to have 15 minutes for public comment. And that's not a lot of time because I know we got a lot of people here. But we've got a short amount of time in the room. So what we're going to do is we'll have 15 minutes for public comment. But if anyone says something you agree with, you raise your hand so that we know the sentiment of everyone in the room. And then we don't have to repeat ourselves a million times. But again, there's more conversations to be had after this. So this is just the start. When you ask your questions, I'll be kind of taking note of what the common themes are amongst the questions. And after that 15 minutes, we'll close the question period. I'll start pulling together the themes from those questions and then have staff respond to the questions that were asked all at one time. Sound good? All right, let's get started then. I'm going to turn it over to staff. I think it'll start with Jessica or Jamie.
Let's start.
Okay.
So first off, I just want to reiterate the mayor's warm welcome to everyone. It's really great to see everybody out here to help support something that's so iconic as the Capitola Wharf. In thinking about this project, you know, it's caused me to reflect a little bit upon the past and history of Capitola. You know that since 1865, 6 times that wharf has gone down and 6 times this community has pulled together to get it back up. So I want everyone in this room to remember that this community has done this before, our forefathers, our foremothers, our ancestors, and we're going to do it. So I want everyone to know that. I want everyone to know that this is a challenge that we're all up for and this community has faced and addressed before. Now, the city of Capitola acquired the wharf in 1980. And since then, interestingly enough, there's been 6 major renovations out there. That's bringing out pile drivers, that's replacing vents. It's been a lot of work and we're up for it. And today we're in the very midst of the largest renovation the city has ever done on the wharf since 1980. So I know these have been hard times, but seeing everybody here really makes me proud of Capitola and everything we can do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica.
Hello, there we go. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We're really excited to see all of you here and hear everything that you have to say and really see your support for Capitola and the businesses out on the wharf. So just a little bit of background on the wharf. As Jamie said, the city acquired it in the 1980s. And that was the last major reconstruction. The buildings were also constructed about that time. So these buildings are approximately 40 years old. Back in 2018, Measure F became effective. You guys all voted on that, money towards the wharf and then other projects such as the jetty, and the flume to make our coastal areas better. Construction began in 2023. So between 2018 and 2023, the city had many meetings. A lot of you, I'm sure, participated on really developing what the resiliency of this wharf was going to be. And what that means right now is that it is wider, it has more piles, all the decking's being replaced. But at that time in 2018, the buildings were also excluded from that project. It was really identified at that time that the money that's going to be raised for Measure F wasn't really going to cover the reconstruction of those buildings. And so the plan was to defer that to a later date. Next slide, please. So as this whole community is aware, in January 2023, we had some major storms that affected our Esplanade and then also the wharf. It was destroyed in midspan and also quite a bit of damage to the head of the wharf. At that time, the wharf structure was red tagged because obviously it was too dangerous to be out there. And then also the buildings were red tagged just based on the fact that we couldn't safely get to them. And we weren't really able to safely get to them for quite some time, really not until the fall of last year, where we accessed it by boat and was able to take a really small hazardous materials team to go test it out and see what was going on in that building. We didn't do a full structural evaluation, but we did see that there was a lot of water intrusion. There's quite a bit of mold in the boat and bait shop, and that there's also asbestos in the floor. So really that type of evaluation of what it would take to get that building back so it could be operational again. And again, in December of that same year, we had another major storm that really caused more damage to both of the buildings. Like I said, we weren't totally clear on the full structural extent of damage to those buildings earlier in the year. By that time, Cushman Contracting had been on the project to rebuild the wharf. They had rebuilt the span. We were able to get a full team across the trestle and really be able to get into both of those buildings and see what kind of damages were really sustained. And Eric is going to go over a bit more detail about what kind of damages are out there right now.
Thank you. I looked at the structure of both buildings. And both buildings, we'll start with the Wharf House. The foundation's compromised. It's no longer able to function as a solid foundation for the building that sits atop of it. And when I mean compromised, when they knocked the southern facing wall in, it took the perimeter of the foundation and blew it across the room. So it's compromised. There's flooring and support defects, vertical support issues, and horizontal member problems. That's solved underpinning below the foundation and with the building itself. So the Wharf House is in pretty rough shape. The weather protection on it, I do have some pictures, I believe. You want to go to the next? That's the Wharf House. If you look to the picture on the right, at the very bottom where the plywood and the blue meet, those chunks that are odd shapen and misplaced, that's the foundation. Okay, so that's pretty much why the Wharf House has been red tagged. It's unsafe to enter it this time. Okay, and then we get over to the boat and bait evaluation. We went in and took a look at the structure and the foundation. And if you look at this picture right here, it shows that the rebar, it's a 4-inch slab, the foundation, and it has a piece of number 4 rebar running through the middle of it. Well, 40 years in ocean weather, that rebar gets wet, it will corrode, it starts to rust, and it spalls. And when it spalls, it gets about 4 times its original size, diameter-wise, and it'll pop the concrete. And that's what it's showing here. That's vertical displacement. That's where the rebar has actually forced the concrete up off of itself and in that position. Now, there's several areas on that slab in the garage area that have the same problem. Can you go to, yeah, there you go. See right here, you get more of the same, wherever the rebar got wet, it popped the concrete. And the next slide, please. Okay. Right there is a picture of the perimeter of the foundation. And you have a crack that runs from one side of the picture to the other. That's your foundation. That's not something that you want to see in a foundation. So the structure might not be as in bad shape looking as the Wharf House, but it's not far off at this point. The foundation looks like that pretty much continuously all around the perimeter of the building. Can you go to the next slide? This is in front of the garage door at the bait house. And if you look, there's a crack that runs the entire distance right above the rebar on the edge. And that is just ready to fail right there. So every time somebody drives over it or walks over it, there's a trip hazard. There's a chance for more damage to the concrete. And while all this is happening, you also have to worry about storm surge. When we get a bad storm, that foundation is unprotected underneath. It's got some boards there, but you get those waves that are pushing up on a broken concrete slab, and it starts heaving and getting cattywampus and whatnot. And right now, you have a hard time opening that door, don't you?
Down, we had just installed.
Okay,
It was
well,
installed a year.
one of my guys tried to open it and they couldn't. So the foundation shouldn't be moving like that in a structure that has a good foundation. Oh, where are we? Next slide, okay. It's kind of lacking. I mean, it's a 40-year-old building. The technology wasn't the same as it is today for weatherproofing or waterproofing. And this is the result. The trim around one of the doors to get into the unit is pretty much decayed all the way through. There's no protection there anymore. So when it rains, water just goes in those gaps and it gets into the framing of the wall. And then you're gonna get decay, termites, and the rest of the fun that goes with it. And next. This is a safety concern that I have, and this is a flammables cabinet that I guess you store all your petroleum and fuel products. It's corroding at an alarming rate, and the base of it is the worst part. So, you know, it's a significant risk right now. And let's go to the next one if you would. Okay, back to you, Jessica.
So really what all of that information, the accumulation of that is that both of these buildings are really structurally deficient. That and the fact that they're out on a wharf that moves quite a bit, there's quite a few storms out there, really brings us to the conclusion that these buildings need to be removed. They're really, especially the Wharf House restaurant, it's obviously has a whole wall that's concaved in. It's a hazard to the workers out there. It's a hazard to the public. It's a hazard to our oceans. So that is what is being discussed at our council meeting tomorrow evening. As far as the wharf resiliency project goes, rebuilding the wharf, the intention is still to move on with that project. So the way that project's been working is we started at the base or the landward side of the wharf, and we're working out to the head of the wharf. So I don't want to say fastest way, because I know that these decisions aren't really made in a way that we're trying to rush them, but in a way to make it work with the project that we already have currently in process is to really remove those properties and to remove everything within those properties, to do the asbestos and other abatement that needs to happen in those properties, and then to remove them, which is quite a big task because it is out on the wharf. You can't have super heavy equipment out there. And you have to go down the trestle and then into a narrow alleyway to dispose of the contents. So while it's a very big task, it's more than if we were to demo this building. What that allows us to do by demoing these buildings is enhance the infrastructure under it. There are quite a few piles that are damaged that we are just going to do lesser fixes to because of those buildings, and they weren't going to be able to access them. Now we're able to fully access the structural elements of the wharf under the buildings and really make it more sturdy for the wharf overall, but also anything that would eventually be rebuilt in their footprint. To that effect, the city intends on engaging in a robust public process that Katie will speak of later on in our presentation, but that is what staff is going to be proposing at our council meeting tomorrow evening. Next slide, please. So in advance of this meeting and our council meeting, we received multiple inquiries from the public, and we have a few questions here that kind of summarize some overall themes. And then we're also happy to answer other questions you all may have after this. But the first question, I will read it for you, Eric, and for the rest of you, the audience. Is it not possible to preserve or reconstruct the buildings? Shouldn't a third party be responsible for conducting the damage assessment?
We thought of that and we got a third-party independent engineer to come out and take a look at the bait house itself and the wharf house. And his report isn't finalized yet. That happened today. And just so that you're not depending on my decision, this is an independent licensed engineer. He agrees with my decision of red tagging those units because of safety. So he's compiling a report and it's going to be presented to the board or the city council tomorrow night. So you'll have access to that at that time.
The second themed question we got was the projected cost of demolition appears excessively high. Why isn't there a transparent bidding process for awarding the demolition contract? So the costs that are outlined in the city council agenda for tomorrow evening, which is on our website, is approximately $1 million, and that's for the demolition alone. And that has a lot of reasons. That's a quote from our contractor. It would be a change order. For the reasons that I just stated, the proximity of the wharf, the abatement that would have to go into addressing those buildings. Other considerations of using our contractors, really mobilization costs. There are really few contractors who work on wharfs. There is precisely 2 in this area. And while it doesn't seem like you would need the wharf contractor to do the demolition, and you could find others to do demolitions services, really to get them all the equipment that they need out there to do those kind of services would be a whole new mobilization or a whole new setup. So that would be of a significant additional cost. We also have to consider that any other contractor we have out there would need to work with our current contractor. We have a duty not to delay their work or we incur additional costs on our current project. And really the urgency, those buildings really being hazards again to the public, to the bay, really lead us to seek the lowest bid outside of a normal bidding process. That said, we are seeking other bids from other contractors who do this kind of work. The Santa Cruz Wharf, not too long ago, had a building demolition done by a separate contractor that we're currently receiving bids from. Next slide, please. So the alternative approach from having our contractor do the wharf completion would be or a sub to our contractor doing this demolition work would be to bid it separately. So to do that would really require for us to finish our wharf resiliency project first. And in reality, that's not really possible because you would have to shore up the wharf house, and to shore up a building, especially in that location, requires quite a bit of a footprint outside of the building. And so you wouldn't be able to access the stuff under the shoring. So it really would be cutting this project short, rebidding the project, getting new permits for the project, and then getting a new demolition team out there, and then a new wharf contracting team out there to do the repairs underneath. So that takes quite a bit of time and permitting, and genuinely would not be cost effective. Next slide, please.
Okay, I'm Katie Hurley, the Community Development Director, and the third question is, these structures and businesses are Capitola community and cultural icons. Why aren't there concrete plans for the future? So the answer to this right now is that we have a red tag on the building because they're unsafe. That's first and foremost, is safety of the public. And then second, for the future, we need your input. We want to start a robust public outreach process in order to find out what exactly do the residents and visitors of Capitola want to see in the future out on the wharf. So that would involve participation of the public in moving forward and making sure that what's built in the future is really the vision of the community. And then one of the other questions that we've been getting is for the boat and bait, could they operate temporarily? And this is definitely an option. We could look at utilizing temporary structures. We would need to permit it through the Coastal Commission, but the services that they offer are definitely in alignment with the Coastal Commission's statement, their purpose of providing access to the coast and being able to utilize the boats and go in the water and giving everyone that experience that we love. So that would need to get permits, but we could go through that process. And then we'd also need to work with the owner to put together a business, or they'd have to put together a business plan to let us know exactly how that would be carried out. So that's definitely an option. And with that, yeah. So with that, we're going to turn this over and first get comments from Boat and Bait Shop, and we're ahead of it. So.
Wow, thank you all for showing up today. This is fabulous. And thank you. Thank you all again. I just wanted to say thank you all for showing up. This is such an event that, we didn't foresee coming. This is really special. You've all shown up and given us your time and how important our business is to this community. We are doing everything we can to rebuild and come back stronger and better than ever. It's going to take some time, but I'm going to give you my word that I'm going to do everything I can do to bring us back. My mother's had this place for 28 years, going on 29. My sister and I have been kind of wanting my mom to retire out of it and let us take it over so that she can go off and vacation and have her retirement for her. So we feel that we are a staple to this community, and we want to continue to be a staple to this community. So thank you very much.
All right, let's turn it over to Willie from the Wharf House.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'd like to preface my remarks with thanking the council and administration of the city for pulling this forum together. This is an important first step in some new direction. But more importantly, I want to thank you people. You are the people, you are the part that provides the impetus for direction to the city. And your part is extremely important. And I want to thank you very much for being. I've been interviewed so many times this last few days that I just feel like I'm just reiterating the same thing over and over. But I think most of you know that I've been out at the Wharf for 35 years now. And as I make an assessment of the room here, I see people that have been part of our staff for over 20 years. And I think that speaks volumes for our operation. I think we're an important part of the community. We've certainly tried to be. I think that we're probably one of the few restaurant operations that have ever been viable on the wharf, and we've tried very hard to be that. It's a crapshoot to be out over the water. I found that out when they talked about there's 6 or so various catastrophic times that we've had on the wharf. I've experienced every one of them. Insurance, there's a lot of fun. If you're over the water and there's waves, and of course there's always waves over the water, you're not covered. That's an exclusion. So it's tough. It's been a crapshoot, and it's hard. But we want to remain in the conversation. We want, and we recognize the report that was just given about the terrible shape that our buildings are in, and they do have to be taken down, and hopefully they'll be replaced. That's what we're hoping for the most. I think your inclusion in this process will be a strong factor in seeing those buildings come back to life. And we've had a lot of fun out there. I look around this room and I see a lot of people that I love and have been with us for a long time. And we want to resume our operation. We're not walking away from this. So anyway, with that being said, thank you very much for being here.
All right. With that, I think we're going to open for public comment. We're going to take 15 minutes, and I know that's not a lot of time. But like I said, if anyone says something that you agree with, just go ahead and raise your hand. We'll take that as a view of the support in the room. You agree already? No. If you have something that you'd like to share, please feel free to come up here to this podium. There's a microphone. I know it's kind of tight getting through the room right now. Welcome.
Hi. I am part of the family that owns the Capitola Boat and Bait, but not only is it our business, it is a life for us out there. I met my husband out there on that wharf, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's other people. You know, not only that, my kids have found every employee and people out there, regardless if it was the boathouse or if it was the wharf house, they were treated like family. My kids always went over there and they were treated so nicely by everybody. My kids love it out there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having this meeting. I'm just curious and wondering, if I cut a tree down at my house, I have to go through a 30-day waiting process before I do that, and it impacts maybe 4 or 5 people. I really want to urge you, it feels like there hasn't been the public process of taking time. I want to urge you that this decision affects all of these people and generations of people, and we should slow down, think through this process. My children, I got married on the wharf. My children, you all taught them how to fish. We still use the red boats. These are memories that last generations. And I just feel like we need to slow down and make the process and go through the same process we all have to go through when we model our home. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melody Venice, and I've been coming out to the Wharf House and enjoying that space for over 30 years. And what I'd like to see, because I know that this is going to have to go down, is maybe we can do like a pop-up kind of thing, like they did at the Santa Cruz Wharf, where they're doing like that beer garden deal for a while until we can get something figured out. But that would give us the opportunity to have maybe food truck or something come out and provide the food and some place to play music and have some tables and have a good time. Because that's what we're all about here. We want to keep having a good time in Capitola and make this the funnest city in Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Peter Kellison. I've been using Capitola Boat and Bait for 26 years, played a role in my family's decision to buy a house here 20 years ago. and we're full-time residents as of a year ago. I've got a question. And the question is, part of the very thing that brought us to Capitola was accessing recreational activities on the ocean. That's consistent with the Coastal Commission's jurisdiction. Capitola's has its own local coastal program. So Capitola does have control over its plan, which is then approved by the California Coastal Commission. However, in the plan that Capitola has on page 33, policy number 28 stipulates that the wharf is a free access public fishing pier, and it must develop small, low intensity facilities that provide complementing public services, i.e. food service facilities, fishing, boating, accessory shop, maintenance and repair operations, water taxi service, public restrooms, etc. The implementation further stipulates that to develop concessionaire agreements that specify and limit types of use on the wharf consistent with this policy. So having said that, greatly appreciate the steps of ensuring that there be an interim process, but that there, in the absence of any long-term plan, how does this, where we are now, comply with Capitola's own local coastal program?
Hi, Mayor Brown, staff, Willie, Dave. My name is Mick Ruth. I'm a longtime Capitola resident. This is a little personal to me, and it's kind of deja vu. In 1979, I was the mayor, and that's when the storm damaged the wharf. Rick Carlina was the owner. He came to me and said, I don't have the financial capacity to fix the wharf. What can we do? Well, my wife told me not to say this, but over a couple bottles of wine in my backyard in our hot tub, Rick and I worked out a deal for the city to purchase the wharf from him and repair it. So we got the wharf in 79. Rick was granted a 17-year lease. In 1983, the storm again damaged the wharf. The city bought the lease from Rick, and since then, it's history. The one thing I wanted to mention was, the buildings out there, we know they've been in a state of disrepair, but I'm curious why the council or the city manager or the finance director hasn't budgeted money annually to amortize the damage that's going to occur. No, in the past, and I don't know if this is still done, but the revenue from the wharf concessions were put in a fund to provide those kinds of maintenance and maintain those buildings out there. I don't know if that's still done, but we're wondering how to pay for it. Here's an idea. Redirect the $1.65 million that the city has budgeted to renovate the community center. Delay that. I know you have an agreement with the school district, but it's not required to be completed until 1986. And in the meantime, the budget projects $131,000 this next budget year from concession rent. That's money lost. And the longer it takes to rebuild those buildings, the longer it takes to recoup that money from the rental of those concessions. So that's my remarks. I hope you rebuild it quickly. And please don't build something out there that resembles Disneyland. Keep it funky so it reflects the history of the pier.
Hello, my name's Andrea. I'm a mom of two, and I live in Capitola. I wrote a little something for today. Everyone here in Santa Cruz knows the pink umbrella man, or rather the woman who floats along Pleasure Point with full body coverage, swinging her hips with such grace. Nobody knows her, but everybody knows her. That goes to be the same for the Capitola Boat and Bait, as well as the Wharf House. I don't even know the names of the gentlemen that hold down that space, but I'd consider them my friends. Why, you may ask? They embody Santa Cruz vibes, just like the other staples that nobody quite knows their impacts until they encounter these pillars of Santa Cruz in the community. The umbrella man disappeared and everyone noticed. If the gal on Pleasure Point stopped running, we'd notice. If the Capitola Boat and Bait and Wharf House aren't rebuilt ever, we will undoubtedly notice and likely lose a lot of what Santa Cruz has to offer. I've rode my bike down to the Capitola Wharf nearly every day for the past 5 years. Since the wharf has been closed, my days are dreary and my evening visits to the wharf are gone. I don't see the old man cleaning the fish and chumming the waters with the guts anymore. I don't smell the air off the wharf anymore, and the wind doesn't pick me up and take me away into the ocean anymore. And most importantly, I don't see the young kids learning to fish like I did for 13 years, the gentleman behind me. And I'm sorry, I don't see the young kids fishing and having a soda with the men of the Capitola boat while they're sitting on the coolers in their garage. These positive guiding lights of our community are naturally coming into leadership roles for your kids. I watched the kids behind me grow up, the men of Capitola B&B, teaching them fishing knots, teaching them boating, teaching them consistency, teaching them how to fish, teaching them how to feed themselves and their family. And you know what they say, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Since the close of the wharf, my days are substantially less Santa Cruz. If you do not rebuild the wharf, the reason I bring these small staples to your attention, such as the pink umbrella man or the woman who floats along Pleasure Point, is because these quirks of Santa Cruz are what create a community. It's what we as Santa Cruz, these strange and strong staples of our community, keep our connections between each other. If we take staples out of our community due to the money or some other reason, undoubtedly the community will begin to fray. The winter storm damaged the physical connections, but don't let it take away the deep-rooted atmosphere of Capitola Boat and Bait. As what it holds, the wharf, our community together, the very staples of the Santa Cruz that endured the storm and that deserve to have a place that remains in our community as it was before. If you don't rebuild the Capitola Bait and Boat, then you're not rebuilding the wharf at all. This building is the staple of this wharf. Without the staple, nothing goes together. I'm here because I have 2-year-olds and I don't want them to lose out on the community that I've loved and they deserve. I'll finish with this. Give the kids the Santa Cruz Capitola Boat and Bait and give them a friend for a day. Show them the community behind fishing and they'll make friends and memories that last a lifetime. It's not about building, it's about these kids' future. Everyone here likely grew up on this wharf and are here so that their kids can enjoy the same. 7th time is the charm. Please stop deferring the money and do it better. Please think of all the memories that the kids deserve. If you do demo, please rebuild. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Connor Guerra, and that's going to be very hard to follow up. I'm sure I look familiar to many in the room. Thankfully, to none of the police department so far. I've come to remind everyone of the incredible importance of the businesses out on the Capitola Wharf. While it's easy to have a great day wandering around the village, I can't imagine a day where people don't end their day with a stroll down the wharf hearing Myron, Ed, Mike's, or JoJo's amazing story of the day. I got my first job in Capitola at the age of 14. Not only did that change my life, but it also changed thousands around the United States. Not for my personal guidance, but from everyone else around. No one else can remember how fantastic it was, the memory of catching your very first fish. God, I'm sorry, I'm losing it. In between the locals that come and rented our boats to the thousands of tourists that visited the village every single year. Capitola Boat and Bait is an absolute necessity to Capitola Wharf. There's something unforgettable about the joy in someone's face after they've caught their first fish on a boat or single-handedly operated a boat of their own. I've been lucky enough to have spent 11 years helping Capitola Boat and Bait, and I beg everyone else to continue to allow others to enjoy. Thank you very much, and I appreciate council finally acknowledging that the structural damage after 13 years that I've been down there. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm gonna make a last call for any public comment. All right, welcome.
My name's Tori Del Fabro, and I was lucky enough to be raised here and raise my 3 boys here. And I just want to say, this is the cheapest game in town to entertain your family. If you go out on the wharf, you will see such diversity, socioeconomical diversity, that you really don't see other places in Capitola. I love that my kids surf, but even a Costco wave storm at $100 is a big price tag to pay ×3 and getting the whole family out there with wetsuits. Fishing's so cheap. It's so great. Such a fun family activity. Please do not take that away. We have so many people in this community that are working hard, and that's how their family finds their recreation, their time together, their smiles. Please keep it going.
Yeah. All right. Seeing no further comment, thank you everyone for your questions and your comments this evening. I hear a couple themes, but the theme that I think is most obvious from those that spoke and also from those who didn't, but just happening to be here tonight, is the spirit of our community and the spirit of how important it is to have these shared experiences at the Wharf House and with Capitola Boat and Bait, the treasured memories that we have in these businesses, and the, I think, understanding that the buildings held our memories, but the businesses and those who have carried these businesses for us is really what made these memories so special, is the people that have led these businesses over the years. And also, I think I heard Mick Ruth invite us to find solutions over wine in the hot tub, so I'll get back to you on that. In the meantime, I heard 4 main themes around funding, timeline, temporary options, and recreation. So I'm going to kind of moderate a little bit and see if staff can give us some answers here. So I'll start with funding. And I heard a question about, why haven't we put money towards the wharf each year? Where's the money gone? And so, Jessica, I know you touched on Measure F, and we've been getting continual funding for Measure F for the wharf over the years. And I know that because of the storms that we've had every year since Measure F, we've had to put some of that back towards replacing a pile here and a pile there until it's kind of dwindled down. And then a lot of it's gone to renovation, but I'm not sure that I'm giving the full answer. So I'm wondering if staff can touch on wharf funding.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. So the wharf funding is, as one of the speakers alluded to, the funding is all isolated that comes from the concessions. So we generate around a little bit more than $100,000 a year from the concessions that are out there. That funding is used directly to maintain the wharf. In addition, I think when we started out, I mentioned the 6 times the city has brought the pile drivers out. That has come from the general fund. So the city has been putting in general fund dollars not each and every year, whenever those major repairs were needed. In addition, Capitola voters were generous enough to approve a tax. I think it was in 2016. It became effective in 2018. That's Measure F. And that's the funding that went into fixing the flume, fixing the jetty, and fixing the wharf. In addition, through some really great political wrangling, this little city was able to obtain $2 million from the state of California, $3.5 million from the federal government, and then another $500,000 last year that's currently on hold. So you should call Governor, call Sacramento and tell them to release that $500K and help us bring them back to the project. So we've been working towards this moment for a long time. Not a single dollar that's been raised out of the ranch from the concessions has gone anywhere but onto the wharf.
Thank you. And I think maybe this is a good time to also mention, I've been in touch with Senator Laird's office yesterday. They have taken an interest in this, and they are interested in working with us and finding funding for temporary solutions, be that containers or trailers or whatever the case may be, while we continue the longer term process of what might be permanent structures on the wharf. But they are interested in working with us on that. So we do have considerations of funding sources other than the ones that we already know that we have available. Okay, and then we have three more things that we'll get through quickly. Another question was around the timeline and why there might be a need for urgency or immediacy. I know tomorrow we're gonna have at our council meeting a vote on a change order around the demolition costs. And so there was a question about why this is happening so quickly. And so can you speak to why we have this sense of urgency?
Sure. So the main reason it's a sense of urgency, especially for the wharf house, is it is an active hazard. It's a hazard for anyone who happens to be out there in the water. It's a hazard for the environment. It's a hazard for those currently working on our wharf project. So for that building, that really is an immediate need. It's something we can get emergency permits from. Typically, you cannot just tear down a building anywhere, as one of the speakers alluded to. You really, unless you have like an active emergency such as earthquake damage or your house partially burned down, you can't usually get a permit to remove this. We can get a permit to remove it because the state also recognizes this as an active hazard. The reason we want the contractor that we currently have out there to do it, as we said in the presentation, is that they are actively mobilized. That's a significant cost. Mobilization a lot of times is 20 or 30% of a construction project. So it's really trying to use our dollars that we have for this project most effectively, and also abating hazards is why this timeline is expedited.
Thank you. And then I'll kind of lump the last two together. There's a question about temporary options, so pop-ups or food trucks, and then also about recreation and our local coastal plan and how that involves recreation in it. And so I'm wondering if we can address, the slides mentioned the potential for an interim option for boat and bait for a trailer container, something along those lines. So I'm wondering if you can talk to those options for temporary pop-ups, food service, recreation.
Sure. So once the wharf is complete and then we could start to plan before it's 100% complete at temporary options for the future. So those options, as the gentleman mentioned earlier, must be consistent with our local coastal program, which there's definite policy, and thank you for reading that. I'll just reemphasize that any future use on the wharf, it should remain a free fishing pier. Also, have small, low-intensity facilities which complement the public services, such as food services, fishing, boating, accessory shops, maintenance and repair, and water taxiing services. So that's what we'd be looking at in terms of a temporary fix out there, is that it be consistent with our LCP and then work towards just agreements with concessioners. So. Yeah.
Yeah. You have something to add? Yeah? Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. As I mentioned, there will be a city council meeting tomorrow, and that's when there will be an actual vote on consideration and a vote on the change order around the wharf and demolition. In the meantime, I can tell you that the city staff is working incredibly hard and cares very much about our community and our wharf and our small businesses and the small business owners, as do I. And I think it would be safe for me to say, as does the rest of the council. We all care very much for this community, as do you. Personally, my family's been here for 4 generations and had a restaurant in Capitola Village in the 60s. My grandfather worked for Capitola PD for 30-something years. I care very much for this community. We're all in this together and we're gonna be okay. So we thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much to Willie and to David for joining us up here this evening. Jessica, Eric, Katie, Jamie. Any final comments? No? All right. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Get home safely. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Good night. All right. Thank you.
Well.
So, not over, guys. Not over. We're just getting started.
I hope so.
Yes, we are.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. We're so.
Drinks are gonna go out. They'll rebuild it.